Today, I've got something special for you. I found this rare 1977 clip of Harrison Ford seducing an interviewer right after Star Wars was released.
Han Solo. I'm captain of the Millennium Falcon.
There's so much to break down in the video and show you how you can spot when a man is trying to seduce you or trying to connect with you emotionally, and exactly what you can do to react and respond in a highly attractive way. So I'm really excited. If you're new here, I'm Jason Silver. This is the dating channel for ambitious women looking to meet and attract high-quality, high-value men for committed relationships. And if you're a longtime viewer, you may notice that we're tearing the set apart. We're putting some cool stuff up. I'm excited. I don't know what's going to go up there, but my kids are really fighting to put up their drawings. I don't think we're going to do that, but we'll see if they win. If you haven't done so already, hit the red subscribe button. Please do that so you can get notified of my upcoming videos. Now, this is with Bobby Wygant. She's a New York Times reporter, and Harrison, they just released Star Wars, and he's in this interview, and he is just seducing the heck out of her from the get-go. And I'm going to point out what he's doing, and I'm also going to show you how Bobby reacted, and I don't think she did a stellar job on this one, but again, it's on TV, and she's being professional. So I'm not going to knock Bobby, but if you were on a date, I would absolutely react a bit differently. Let's go in from the beginning. They're just starting the interview, and I just want you to watch how Harrison builds rapport and how he moves to a sensual energy. Watch what he does here.
The first time you saw Star Wars, what were some of your thoughts and your reactions?
Well, I was delighted, of course, and very proud of the people that created it.
There's a few things that he did here which were really interesting. The first thing, he had a deep masculine voice. Masculine and feminine traits are just things that separate men and women. And having a deep voice is one of those things that men try to employ to be more attractive. So if you're out with a guy and you see him acting a little bit more machismo in front of you, then there's a good chance that he's trying to impress you. So Harrison goes deep with the bass voice. He also moves from a professional, up tall posture to a more relaxed posture to the side, almost like you're laying together more casually. It's just a bit more intimate. And then he matches her, he mirrors her by mirroring the tonality, the cadence of her voice, a little bit slower than her cadence of how she's speaking. And that's really important when you're trying to build rapport and connection with someone. One of the best ways to do it is to get on their level energetically. And a great way to do that is by lowering your volume to just slightly softer than their volume. That's also a feminine trait that is attractive to men. Also, you can increase the pitch of your voice to do a higher voice. Another feminine trait that attracts men. And finally, what Harrison did, which I thought was interesting, was he really paused between words to give his words importance. So the more brief and the more that you pause before you speak, it presents that what you're going to say is meaningful and important. It also allows you to use the words that you mean rather than just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, let's keep watching here.
That created it. Grateful to be a part of it.
But did some of it look different?
Wait
from
a
what
second.
You had?
What just happened there? Grateful to be a part of it, and look at his face. Like, zoom in on this. Right there, he's got a little bit psycho eyes, okay? But what he's actually doing is he is zoning in. And this is really interesting. What he's doing right now, this is emotional subcommunication. He's not using his words, but he is clearly communicating. As humans, we communicate primarily through emotions, meaning we can pick up, and if someone's saying one thing with words, but we can feel a different kind of emotion or energy, we're sticking with the emotion and the energy. That's what is guiding our decision-making. So what Harrison is doing right now is he is making deep eye contact. And in his mind, he's probably saying something like, I'm so attracted to you. I am looking right at you right now. Let's forget this interview, and you and I, let's just go out on a date. I believe he's actually probably saying stuff like that in his mind. And at this point, he's probably not even trying to manipulate or try to pick her up. I think he's a natural. I think he's just naturally seductive. And if he chooses to start connecting with a woman, he's just going to do it because he's Harrison Ford. But just watch the eye gaze and the intensity.
You had imagined it was going to look?
Well, I had no idea.
Look at his eyes. You can kind of see his eyes darting down. It's interesting because it's almost like he's just observing a piece of art. Normally, when we talk to someone, we just maintain eye contact. You can see Harrison's eyes darting down a little bit. He's just kind of looking at her lips, appreciating her face. Maybe he looked at her neck. And then right when he broke, right here, look where his eyes go. Right when he starts talking.
Grateful to be a part of it.
But did some of it look different from what you had imagined it was going to look?
Well, I had no idea.
Right before he said, well, I had no idea, his eyes dropped down to her chest. And he's being kind of obvious, but because he's looking up and talking, it's almost like he gets away with it. It's almost like, oh, I was just moving my face before I started talking. But that's intentional. I mean, he obviously looked down at her breasts and then started talking. That's how a man can indicate interest to you. He'll just start looking because it might be inappropriate or scary to say something directly. So more smooth, high-value men, they may just be a little bit more appropriate because they know the more socially appropriate thing to do. They have no need to be super strong and direct. These are men who are being chased by so many women. So if they're going to indicate interest, they might just do it a little more subtly. And quite frankly, he might be very direct, but not in an interview. He's having fun right now.
Of how skillful or spectacular the special effects were going to be. I was surprised.
Okay. At this point, he's not even talking about the movie. I think, and this is a classic flirting strategy, I think right now that he's talking about his relationship with her, in actuality, he's, for the interview, he's talking about the movie. So he's using like this sensual language to talk about this movie when in actuality, he's talking about him and her. And it's basically being able to pick up on the subcommunication, that emotional subcommunication. What are we really talking about here? Always ask yourself that question when you're with a man. What are we really talking about? What's he really trying to say? You may notice that he's actually talking about something different. I'll show you what I mean here.
Skillful or spectacular, the special.
Skillful and spectacular, and the way he says it, it's just seductive.
I was surprised by that. But I knew pretty much what the rest of it was going to be like.
I mean, this is just blatant. I think anyone can see this, right? He just gets this real seductive, sly smile, and he says...
I was surprised by that. But I knew pretty much what the rest of it was.
But he looked at her, and he smiled, and he said, I knew what the rest of it would be like. I mean, at this point, he's putting it on pretty thick, okay? So this is pretty strong, aggressive flirtation. And Bobby handled this really well. She just stayed professional from that respect. If a guy is coming on to you this strongly, you can let him know that you're okay with that by continuing to talk to him. You don't have to react with flirtation at this point. Just by you continuing to talk to him, he's assuming that you're attracted. Because if a woman wasn't and he laid it on that thick, she might excuse herself and realize, oh, this is not going anywhere where I want to go. So again, if guys are laying it on really thick, the only thing that you have to do to let them know that you're interested is continue talking to them. That's it. Don't walk away.
It's going to be like. Yeah.
Did any particular thing grab you as far as the special effects and where you just...
I feel like even Bobby subconsciously is playing along, even though she doesn't realize it maybe. I don't know, but she said, does anything grab you? Everything is very like touchy-feely and sensual, and the words about it. I don't know if he's just hypnotizing her and she's getting caught up in the emotions or if she's intentional.
Wow, I didn't know it was going to be like that.
Well, that opening shot is a stroke of genius. I don't want to describe.
Look what he's doing right now. Literally, his fingers are pointing right at her. He's stroking the air in front of her.
Fear of ruining it for somebody
Look
else.
Look at he leans forward a little.
There is an opening special effects
and
shot, which
it's like he's stopping himself from touching her. His hands are going forward. Look at that. Look at that. It's like he's reaching for her, but he just stops himself, right? I can't. I'm on TV. I can't do it.
Nice to see.
And look at it's like that frustration, like, oh, I can't touch you, I'm on TV. But look at that tension that he created by kind of reaching out and closing the gap, the physical space between them. He's squeezing his hand and rubbing his fingers together, dealing with that tension. And he looks at her and he says, and you have that audience from that point on. I have you. I have you. I feel like this is the subcommunication.
Rogers, Flash Gordon, sci-fi fan?
No, I never have. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen one of those
Now, at this point, what I think happens is I think Harrison is super smooth, and he's just laid it on super thick. She hasn't really reciprocated that much with him, and he's not going to keep going. Now, at this point, I think Harrison is doing kind of a classic player move, which is he's laying it on a little thick, but then he's taking it away. Now he's acting totally professional, and he actually does that for a couple minutes. He kind of moves away from the seduction, and that just shows that the man has control, right? Not just some animal, but he's a professional who can discreetly be seductive. And that's another subcommunication that he's trying to indicate that he's safe. He can be appropriate when it's time to be appropriate, and he can be seductive at other times. And being able to kind of go back and forth between these two energies is a skill. It's an art, and it requires practice and potentially a lot of uncomfortable, awkward situations where you start to calibrate more.
Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon series.
Well, now we have something in common, Harrison, because
you haven't either.
No, I never read that stuff when I was a kid.
Neither did I.
Never interested me, as a matter of fact.
I just find it interesting. Harrison kind of pulled away, and then Bobby qualified herself. By her telling Harrison that they have something in common, she's qualifying herself and letting Harrison know, I passed the test. I'm like you. I see what you're doing here, and just keep going. Keep going. I want to, I'm good enough. She didn't need to do that. She already had that seductive captivation. I think it would be better at this point when he's so captivating. First of all, it's an interview, so it should be about him. But second of all, it just seems a little bit like she's trying too hard. And she doesn't need to, in my opinion. So if a man is aggressively flirting with you, you don't need to say, oh, really? Really? I like that too. Because just by you accepting his moves, just by you accepting his flirtations, continuing to go with it, that is enough. Anything beyond that, you're almost trying too hard and giving him all the value. And I think that's what Bobby does here.
Interested me, as a matter of fact. And I've never
Well, George did. But this is George's movie, and George was able to write something which was accessible for.
Well, that's what is interesting to me, is the fact that people like you and
Look at
me
this.
and others that
Harrison
I
just
talk
feels
with.
so comfortable just sitting there and appreciating her. I mean, as he's looking at her, he's not just making eye contact. He's looking her all over. He's looking all over her face and her lips. Look at his eyes move all around. And that's a sign of a man who's just almost like appreciating her like a work of art. And it would be pretty obvious, except for the fact that you're in an interview with a movie star and you're not going to go off script, and he kind of knows that, and I think he's taking advantage of it.
That I've talked with who say, well, I don't like sci-fi, I don't like that sort of thing.
But I like
wow,
this.
I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
Why do we like this?
Well, it's a fantasy.
So this is interesting. So I just said that she qualified herself, and now what Harrison does is he pulls away for a couple minutes. He's already got her. She's trying to prove herself to him. She's like, me too. And it just feels a little try-hard, especially when she's a interviewer, and it's not really about her. But he captivated her, she qualified herself, and now he pulls away. For a couple minutes, he doesn't really focus on seducing her. He's appropriate. He shows her that he can do it at the appropriate times. So for like another minute, he kind of just talks about the film, and he's very professional. But then right around this part, he kind of jumps back into it and starts getting sensual again.
A well of energy to deal with it.
Right when he said
There's a
well of
lot
energy, watch. He slows down. There was a lot of energy, and he looked at her.
Are you beginning to see the effects of Star Wars on your personal life and your career? Maybe things that haven't been happening up till now for you?
Well, everyone has respect for success, and this film is certainly a success. And it has produced the inevitable change for me, yeah.
In what way?
Well, there are a lot more scripts for me to read, and a lot more people interested in using my services, much to my delight.
What about recognition?
Listen, if you doubted for a second that he was talking about something other than Star Wars, I hope that just, proves it. Because actors don't say that more people want to employ my services. It's clearly he's talking about sex there.
in public? Are you beginning now to be people say, running up to you and want to talk
Well, you know,
about
I
it?
saw the film with an audience.
Now, he tells a little story here, and there's nothing any that eye-opening, but here at the end...
Change, though. Harrison, thank you so much for talking
Thank
with
you.
us
It's been
today.
my
It's been
pleasure.
a pleasure meeting you.
And this is Bobby Wygant at 20th Century Fox Studios in Hollywood.
Thank you. Very pleasant.
Now, what I want to show you is the end of the interview. Okay, right when the cameras stop, let's see what Bobby does. Does she get the number? Does she go for the close? Does she retain high value? How does she handle it?
Pleasure.
I really could identify with you on that, the fact that I went to it knowing this wasn't my kind of film.
So unfortunately, Bobby goes right back to trying to qualify herself to him, which is not the high value move. Now, maybe Bobby wasn't trying to seduce him back. Maybe she was just trying to be friendly, right? So I'm not going to hold that against her. Maybe she was just being professional. But if a man lays it on this thick, you don't need to try to prove anything to him. You can just assume that he's very much into you. You can act absolutely authentically and who you are and be proud of yourself, and you don't have to try to impress him. The more that you try to impress a man, the less impressive and attractive you'll be, because men want a real high-value woman, and especially these high-value, powerful men. There's basically 1% of men in the world. 99% of women are fighting over these high-value men. And if you want to attract these high-value men, you really have to take a different approach. You can't do what 99% of other women are doing because it's going to get you the same results. You really need to be in the 1%. And there's actually a specific approach that high-value women take. The 1% of high-value women are taking to attract these types of men. And I recently made a whole free training about this that you can access right now by clicking the link in the description. Now, this video is going to teach you how you can use this little-known strategy and become the top 1% of women who attracts these high-value men. You're also going to hear about my new flagship coaching program, Unleash the Queen Within. This is my exclusive coaching program where you get to work directly with an elite attraction coach who personally walks you through this approach to attract high-value men. If you're ready to take some action and really begin attracting these higher value men, then please do click the link in the description below and check out the video. Thank you so much for watching. This is a little bit of a different video, so let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it and any other videos you'd like to see me do in the future. All right, you be well.